Hello, I'm Richard Sher, and welcome. Keep square off. Let's meet this week's panel. WBAL's radio's Torrey Snow. He's on the air there at 2 to 6 p.m. We have attorney Tom Minkin, who's with us today. We have former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon, and the powerful conservative voice and face of Dan Joseph. Thank you all for being with us, joining us here at squareoff.net. All right, so let's get this straightened out. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has finally come clean and admits that he has made up the stories that some of the 15,000 immigrants who've settled in Springfield, Ohio, are eating people's cats and dogs. And now Donald Trump has joined the pet eating chorus also. Trump announced he will soon be making a trip to Springfield, but the mayor and other officials say that the town does not have the resources needed for such a visit. Cats and dogs, Torrey, you kick it off.
Look, I mean, it's kind of a symptom of the era that we live in, where you can just say something and hope it sticks and people might believe it. And look, I'm kind of the side that believes that Donald Trump knew what he was doing when he made these remarks, specifically setting them on fire in the debate, pushing these rumors. It really is the very blocking and tackling of being a demagogue, right? You create some really scary thing that may or may not be happening, and then people like, oh, that sounds like it could be true, and then they just run with it. So in my opinion, it's just another symptom of a society that just doesn't really care to fact check anything and just believe the things that they want to believe.
Sheila, what do you
So
think?
I heard J.D. Vance in an interview kind of talk about why he said it versus why didn't he just deal with the fact that all of these immigrants were being moved there and the fact that we need to deal with immigrations and those issues versus making up that story. You know, it's really crazy, and it's sad because now the Haitian people's lives are being threatened and people are afraid. And I just think that just deal with the facts. If you want to talk about the fact that 15,000, I believe, or 1,500 immigrants from Haiti were moved there, let's talk about that and deal with that issue.
Well, here's what Vance, Sheila, you're referring to this. Here's what he had to say about making it all up. Quote, if I have to create stories so that the American media actually pay attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do. Tom Minkin, what are you going to do about it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to congratulate the Harris campaign by virtue of the fact that if they had anything to do with Trump picking this buffoon, it's very much in their favor. I mean, this guy, you know, I realized he went from the street to the United States Senate with no other political background, but he doesn't have to demonstrate it every time he opens his mouth. What he's saying is horrific, and it's so wrong that he probably is turning a lot of people off to the Republicans in general because of it.
Dan.
Yeah, okay. I think I have a theory on why this all happened, because it's about the way that MAGA and Trump and Vance and most of the Republican Party right now gets its news. They get their news off of Twitter. It's the first thing I think most MAGA people look at in the morning. And there are all sorts of false stories on there. And one of the stories was there's a lady eating a cat or a dog in this town in Ohio. And they buy it because it's, you know, and it reinforces their own biases. It's a story that they want to believe. And it got out of hand here. Trump saw the story. They didn't do anything to check it. They didn't fact check it. They didn't confirm it. And Trump just said it like he does with everything. And then they were trapped because the media found out that it was false, and they can't go back and say, well, oh yeah, we made a huge mistake on that. Campaigns just don't do that. So they embraced it. And the reason they embraced it, even though they knew it was false, was because they believe that if they're talking about the immigration issue in any way, shape, or form, that they're winning. And right. I don't know if that's true.
Jump in, anyone.
I
Well,
will
I
say
think
this. I
Dan
will
is
say this though. I
absolutely
will
There's
say
not a lot
this.
to contradict, honestly.
Really, it really
It's
isn't.
I think it's you know, there are some issues that I do feel like there's some nuances, opportunity for discussion. This is cut and dry. I mean, I think even Republicans and conservatives kind of cringed when they saw it. I mean, especially in the debate where they pressed him on it. He's like, "Oh, I saw it on TV." I'm like, "Dude, you have like millions of dollars. You don't have a single advisor that can give you information besides seeing it on Newsmax." So, like, it's a point of extreme frustration. But I mean, I look at it as more of a broader reflection of people's willingness to believe anything that's not true,
Well,
as long as it
I
suits
think
their
the major
agenda.
problem here, Tori, is that it's media literacy. We have a serious problem with media literacy in this country, and it's been going on ever since the internet came out. And people will read something, they still don't know how to source it, they still don't know how to fact check it. Apparently, the president of the United States, or the former president, is one of those people, and it's caused so much pain and suffering in our American political conversation.
No, I have to agree with Dan, and it seems like it's really gotten out of control. And there's also not a balance in what's being reported in the media either. Media seems to be one-sided. But in the case of the woman who possibly was eating the cat, there was clearly something wrong with the woman. First of all, she wasn't Haitian. Secondly, she had some mental issues. And so once that story got out there, then that's where it should have been. Now, the immigration issue is a whole different issue that we've got to deal with, and that it seems like, you know, it's part of the platform of both parties, but nobody's coming up with real solutions.
As Sheila mentioned earlier, and then you, Tom, ever since Trump and Vance have advanced the cat and dog accusations, there have been threats against the Springfield Haitians, 15,000 of them, Sheila. Threat, those threats have forced the closings of schools and hospitals and all kinds of chaos in that tiny town of Springfield. Republican Governor Mike DeWine calls the pet claims a piece of garbage. Garbage. Tom, you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say it's a good thing that Dwight Eisenhower, and for that matter, Ronald Reagan, are not alive anymore, because if they watched 5 minutes of this, it would kill both of them. I mean, the Republican Party used to be a party, I never belonged to it, but you could respect it. You didn't have to agree with them. But right now, it's nothing more than a clown show. And that's a shame for this country.
Yeah, this election will determine whether or not the Republican Party stays the MAGA party and, you know, continues to invite all of this craziness, and guys like Mark Robinson, who's the GOP candidate for governor in North Carolina, who just got hit with a huge scandal. If they'll embrace guys like him and they'll stick that way, or if Trump loses and maybe they have a chance to move back to the more Reagan-esque conservative brand.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says the pet abuse myths are intended, quote, to change the subject away from abortion rights, manufacturing jobs, taxation of the rich, and other things at stake in this election. How do you guys feel the election is going so far? Sheila?
Well, for me, I think that neither party, Harris or Trump, are really giving factual policy changes that are going to have the real impact on our community. Of course, I'm going to support Vice President Harris, but I need to have more information about what she's going to do as it relates to the economy. You know, of course, the abortion issue and crime, you know, just across the board, you've got to lay out your plan, and you've got to have a definitive plan. You know, it bothers me and frustrates me as running a campaign and really digging into policies and making real changes, and really trying to implement that. And I'm not hearing that on both sides. I'm just bickering back and forth.
Yeah, I agree. And I find if you were going to ask me about the race, I find it frustrating, because as someone who likes policy, who likes to discuss issues, who likes it when ideas, you know, clash and come at one another. And I like that engagement. I think that it's healthy for the nation when you do have that. This is one of those elections where I don't think anyone has really strong options. I think even Democrats are like, reluctantly voting for Kamala Harris, similar to what Mayor Dixon suggested, that, you know, they'd like a little more substance. They'd like to be enthusiastic for a candidate. And I think that this election itself, we always talk about threats to democracy, but I think that the very election itself is a threat in the sense that people are just losing faith in this whole system overall. And we're beginning to ask questions like, do we even bother with primaries anymore? Do we even bother with elections? Because we're just going to get people that we don't like at all. And I think that that's my takeaway, is that cynicism continues to grow, which is a dangerous position for a nation that's really bursting at the seams with a lot of pent up rage and frustration.
Well, to emphasize what Torrey is saying, I think he's absolutely correct. You can see that by virtue of the fact that so many of the voters are now unaffiliated and they don't want to belong to the Democratic or Republican parties. And this obviously is one of the major reasons why. And under other circumstances, if you had a legitimate third-party candidate who was reasonable and came up with positions that actually helped the country, rather than this clown show, I think the country would be a lot better off.
This is an issue. Yeah. No, I think everybody's right. This has been an issues-free campaign, because on the one side you have Trump, who can't articulate ideas and issues, and on the other side you have Harris, who won't articulate issues and substance. Now, for Harris, this is a strategy, and it seems to be a strategy that's somewhat working. She is up in the polls right now, and I'm impressed with the Harris campaign, because the Harris campaign has been very disciplined. I don't think they've made any huge mistakes yet, while the Trump campaign is obviously, a typical Trump campaign. I think that's going to serve her well. And if she can go through the whole campaign without directly answering some of those issues, I don't think it's going to matter that much.
Go ahead, Sheila. I see you're about to talk.
No, I can disagree. I just strongly believe that people want results, and they want to be able to know, in this upcoming election, we're going to see this in the next 4 years. What is the economy going to look like? What is my checkbook going to look like? What are we going to do as relates to abortion? What are we going to do with our kids and education, healthcare, seniors? I mean, so many issues. What are we going to do with the deficits that we're dealing with currently, where the next generation might not even have a Social Security? We got it. What are we going to do about the infrastructure? It's just so many things. Why are we engaged and involved in so many things in other countries as relates to war, and not putting the resources here? I don't know.
It's a question, but it's a question that has an answer. The answer when it comes to Kamala Harris is she's going to do exactly the same thing the Democratic Party has been doing for the last 20 years. It's one agenda, and it's just spanned the presidencies of two different presidents and possibly Kamala Harris.
No, I disagree. I think Obama came in and really had set the platform to really make the kind of significant changes. Obamacare was beneficial to everyone. I just think that right now we've kind of moved away from issues versus battling the parties. And I when I registered to vote at 18, I was independent. I ended up becoming Democrat because I wanted to vote during the primary. And I think those are some other things that need to change, where people should have choices. If you're independent, Democrat, Republican, Green Party, whatever, you should be able to vote during primary elections. But we also have to get back to basic fundamental education. I think our young people are not in tune to what's going on, and we've lost civics.
All right, Sheila, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Here's the voice of Square Off, then we're going to talk about guns, serious talk about guns. Here's the voice of the show, Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes that extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. So next time you need a lawyer, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. He gets results. Tell him Richard Sher sent you.
Do that.
And for special occasions, group get-togethers, or just date night, Pappas restaurants and sports bars belong on the top of your list. Enjoy their award-winning crab cake, or as Richard calls it, Rich,
Fab
the
cake.
fat
Fab.
cake,
Yeah.
and a great selection of steaks, seafood, and other mouth-watering treats. Pappas is Oprah's favorite, and they ship their crab cakes all over the country. 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. Pappas food, service, and atmosphere is second to none. Back to you, Richard.
Those cakes are fabulous. Okay. Here, ladies and gentlemen, watching Square Off at squareoff.net, here's an alarming statistic. There are an estimated 393 million guns in the United States, more than 1/3 of all civilian-owned guns in the world, making the United States the #1 gun country in all the world. Like the 2 AR-style rifles, one used to shoot Donald Trump, hitting him in the ear, the other that was hidden by a would-be assassin waiting for up to 12 hours in the weeds along Trump's Florida golf course, waiting for his chance to shoot at Donald Trump. But an alert Secret Service agent spotted the AK-47 poking out of the bush. The agent started firing at the would-be assassin, who was Ryan Wesley Ralph, who fled and was caught by police on a nearby highway. What do you think about all the guns in this world and in this city and in this state? Torrey.
Every time we have this conversation, gun proliferation is something that is a major concern to me, but it really becomes quickly a discussion of the issue that we're addressing and the issue that we're ignoring. What we're addressing are the guns that people purchase in gun stores and the ones that they have access to. And we have lots of laws, lots of guidelines, lots of restrictions. We're doing everything that we can here in Maryland to restrict legal law-abiding gun owners from getting firearms. What I never see discussed is what we're doing to deal with the guns that are actually killing our Black young men. The handguns, the gun trafficking. I think that officials announced that they'd seized some, 100 some odd guns this year alone, and are all illegal guns. These aren't being purchased legally by your Uncle Bob at the local gun store. You have kids that are literally going and robbing the gun stores. I honestly feel like the discussion has become so, skewed out of balance, where we're only talking about law-abiding gun owners, and we're not doing anything to address gun trafficking and weapons trafficking and thefts.
Torrey, a gun was used to murder 36-year-old Antonio Peoples last Saturday night in Baltimore's Harbor East neighborhood. Another gun that killed 15-year-old Warren Curtis Grant during a fight at Joppatown High School in the bathroom there. In Georgia, a 14-year-old high school student opens fire with an assault rifle, murdering 2 students and 2 teachers. 9 others were injured in that shooting. In Virginia, a 6-year-old boy brought a loaded gun to his elementary school. And everybody seems, that's a figure of speech, but everybody seems to have guns. Tom?
This is the logical result of the dominance of the National Rifle Association, which of course is an arm of the Republican Party, and their ability to purchase the Congress by virtue of their political contributions. I mean, what do we expect when you have generations of people who are advocating for, under the guise of liberty, allowing guns to proliferate like this? I mean, there are 260 million people in America and 300 and whatever it is million guns. It's unbelievable.
What would you
But
estimate the
reality
breakdown
it
of those guns is legal to illegal?
Pardon me?
Like, if you had to guess, what do you
mostly
think the
legal.
percentage of the guns are legally possessed, rightfully purchased, versus illegally possessed trafficked firearms?
Well, even the ones that are legally purchased are subject to being snatched.
But which ones are killing our
That's-
Black young men?
I think most of them are illegal. quite
Yes,
frankly, but
almost
it's
all of them
just
are
an
illegal
opinion.
guns. So
I
which
think-
one should we be focusing on? Like
Look,
we
I
should be
think-
focusing on the illegal guns.
I think we're looking at the wrong thing though here. It's not really about the proliferation. It's about who's getting the gun. Those with criminal intent, obviously, we don't want them having guns. The crazy people, we don't want mentally ill people having guns. And then you get into the idea of certain kinds of guns. Now, what I think is the Second Amendment, obviously, we're still debating over what the interpretation of that is. I believe a common sense Second Amendment interpretation would be if you're of age and you want a handgun in this country, you should be able to get a handgun. But at the same time, we're talking about guns like AR-15s and AK-47s. I see no reason why those guns should be available to civilians in the United States. I know people will say, well, it's for self-defense and hunting. Well, that's, a handgun is good for self-defense, and everybody has a right to protect themselves. But at the same time, an AR-15 is not going to be used for that. The goal of the AR-15 is to be able to shoot as many people as possible in as short amount of time. It's time to stop with all. At least give it a try, right? At least try it and see if the school shootings in particular end by banning that gun.
And who's going to pass that kind of legislation? Dan?
That's going to have to be passed at the federal level,
Mhm.
that kind of legislation. But I agree with Tan and Torrey, where you got to get control over who's handling the guns, because keep in mind, you can order guns online, the ghost guns, you can order those online. You have the illegal guns that are killing these young Black, African-American, brown and Black kids. But that has happened at the federal level. So, Second Amendment, I agree with Dan. Let's limit the type of gun a person can purchase and own. The background checks are there, all the laws are in place, but we haven't gotten a hand on illegal guns. One of the things that I'll never forget, Mayor Bloomberg, what we did was we had this whole 95 pipeline where we were tracking illegal guns up and down 95, going to the gun shows, checking out who's buying the guns or who's not buying the guns or how they're buying the guns. Things are in place that I think today, for whatever reason, it was effective. It's not consistency in using those tools to help to deal with these illegal guns. Because a 15-year-old at a school having a gun, and this is not the first time, we've got to get a handle on it.
But I am actually curious about that, Mayor Dixon, because you mentioned that specifically with the illegal guns, that's something that needs to be addressed at the federal level. But I would think it'd be the opposite, right? Because it's the Baltimore City Police Department that's finding these firearms.
No, I'm talking
It's
about
the
the
BPD.
type of guns at the federal level.
Yeah. But I mean, but clearly we have an issue with handguns. Like that is our major issue. To me, like I am laser focused on that. Like, those are the ones that are inflicting all this chaotic damage and terror in our communities. And that is a local issue, right? That's something that your state and local officials here in Maryland, there's no reason we shouldn't have a robust and thorough effort to quell the trafficking of illegal firearms in the state. Has anyone
No,
done
and that's
anything?
why I made the point about Mayor Bloomberg, because at the local level,
Yeah.
when I was mayor and he was mayor of New York, and he had this whole gun effort he was
Yeah.
doing, it was at the local level where we were
Yeah.
tracking it down 95.
I feel
at
like
the
that's
gun
where
shows, et cetera.
that's where the energy goes, right? I feel like this is a question for Mayor Scott. This is a question for Wes Moore. This is a question for Speaker Jones, President Ferguson. They have to take this on as a priority. And keep in mind, for the past several years, they have literally ignored every piece of proposed legislation from the Republicans to deal with illegal guns.
All right, we're going to stop for a moment. I've got more statistics breaking now from the mayor's office in Baltimore. I'll have those right after Howard. Mallison has these words about our great sponsors.
Thank you, Rich. The way people drive these days, auto accidents happen all over the place. If your car has been in an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take it. That's why more and more people are trusting their auto repairs and auto maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models, and they offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. Give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Baltimore is one of the best diner towns in the country, and the most popular of them all are the Double T diners. TT, totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, dinner, the Double T menu offers you so many choices, you're going to want to order everything. They have locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, Monday nights are lobster nights at By the Docks in Middle River, which is all part of the Double T family. Back to you, Richard.
I do want to say that I had a problem, a little brush with somebody's bumper, and Leading Edge fixed it in no time. I'm telling you, they're the best, the very best. All right, this is from Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, who reports city police gun squads have seized 1,647 guns so far this year. 42 have been seized in the past week. And wouldn't you want to bet they're illegally gotten guns, Tom?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. But, you know, I don't want to sound like the old man in the group, but I remember 50 years ago when I was in the service, I was there just at the time that the military went to the M16. I happened to be a gunner's mate, and I was involved with weapons. And I remember firing that M16, which of course is the military version of the AR-15. And the amount of damage it can do is simply off the chart. Now, and that gets lost in this proliferation of guns all over the place. I mean, handguns are bad enough, but when you start talking about automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons, which can be turned into automatic weapons very easily, it's appalling. I mean, something has to be done about this.
I think it
but
should
even
be
if they
lost in the
do, there's
discussion.
still probably millions of automatic weapons that are still out there.
But that's not that those weapons are not what's causing all the devastation with gun violence. Like statistically, when you look at the data and the statistics, it is a fool's errand to say let's deal with AR-15s and assault style weapons and ignore the guns that are actually killing most of us.
And then you raise the question, can you ever actually get rid of these guns? Is there any way through any kind of legislation that you can make the problems that we have with handguns and the problems we have with other high-powered rifles, can they just disappear? Is there anything we can even do? And I don't know if there is.
No, but we can take the people and incarcerate the ones that want to use them.
Well, sure.
We can take them and hold them accountable for having these guns. We can go after the individuals that are getting guns and putting them in the hands of a 12-year-old. We can investigate and bring those people to account. We can strengthen our laws and make it so that our laws have teeth when it comes to dealing with folks that use guns illegally, which is why, yes, it's a tired trope, but is it the gun or is it the people holding the gun?
Police are also trying to find the shooter or shooters who critically wounded 50-year-old Mark McKenzie. He was in his Rogers Forge garage when they robbed him or tried to rob him. And neighbors on Springfield Avenue off the Alameda are mourning the loss of 59-year-old Reginald Bernard Harrod, who was shot.
He worked for the city. He was a good, decent person. I knew him. Unbelievable.
Sheila, you know that he was shot and killed Saturday night outside of his North Baltimore home. He was planning for his 60th birthday. And there are stories like this. I've named quite a few. Any final words on guns? Dan, you look like you have something to say.
No, look, I think it's a problem that doesn't really have a solution. Yeah, would I like to see AR-15s and those other kind of guns go off the market and people not have them? Sure, I would. In the perfect world, would everybody not own a gun? Yeah, I guess so. In the perfect world, it would have never been invented, but unfortunately it's there. And I don't believe that there's any federal legislation that's going to stop things like school shootings, which I think is a problem, a cultural problem. And I think the inner city shootings have been going on for 50 years, regardless of what gun regulations you put in place. I think that's a cultural issue as well.
And I'll just say that I will never talk about the gun proliferation issue, and I'll never gloss over the fact that illegal handguns are killing our children. Like, I'll never forget that. And I don't think it's appropriate for our General Assembly to ignore it. I don't think it's appropriate for our governor to ignore it. I don't think it's appropriate for the mayor to just brush over these things. I think that has to be the focus of this discussion. How do we save our Black and brown children? And in doing so, you've got to deal with the fact, Dan, you remember when we talked to the attorney for the guy, the one that killed the squeegee kid. And we asked the
that's right.
attorney, you were right there on the air. I said, well, where did the kid get the gun from? Do you remember
He
what
had
he
no
said Dan?
idea, right?
We didn't ask
Right.
him.
We
Like,
do-
Well,
yeah.
why didn't you ask him? You know,
Right.
if you find a
But
12-year-old
we
with a
should,
gun,
we
find out who
should
gave it to
know,
him.
we should
Yeah.
know where he got that gun from.
Yeah,
We should know where that
absolutely.
15-year-old got that gun from. Somebody should be able to interview those kids. I don't own a gun. I don't want to own a gun, but I agree. You know, these guns, younger and younger people are getting access to these guns, and we've got to get control of this, along with dealing with the consequences that young people will have to face when you have a gun. That message hasn't been sent, because kids in school should be able to go to school and be able to feel safe. And that's not the case. And that's so sad and unfortunate.
Let's not forget the associated problem, which is a total failure in this country of the government to address the issue of people with mental issues. And sadly, all too often, these atrocious crimes are committed by people who are, let's just say, of questionable status when it comes to mental acuity,
Well,
unfortunately.
and we've run out of time, but it's really a shame. I have mentioned several murders committed probably by illegal guns. I covered the entire state. We'll have to see. But you guys are right. They got it. The legislators must do something about it, or if they don't care. I mean, whoever thought of kids having to go to school and rehearse active shooter drills? That's all. I mean, it's sickening. But in any case, we're not sickened by you all who join us each and every day here, or each and every week at SquareOff.net. Our audience continues to grow, and we want to thank you for being with us on a regular basis now. Tom Minkin, thank you. Sheila Dixon, thank you. Torrey Snow and Dan Joseph, and you. We'll see you next time. And once again, we square off. Richard Sher signing off. Bye-bye.